intimate partnerships can be the most potent laboratory for personal growth and transformation. But what that requires is that we take a lot of personal responsibility for not only the energy that we're bringing into our partnerships, but really paying attention to what our partners are evoking within us, right? Now, as we head into the holiday season, this can be a really beautiful time to slow down a bit from the grind of our daily lives and be present with the people that we love. But it can also be a time where a lot of our pain points and stressors and things that we've felt challenged by in the past, we start to feel come to the surface again in a way that can be a little bit overwhelming to us on a nervous system level, right? And when this happens, and I say when quite intentionally because we're human. And these are things that all of us can struggle with a little bit around the holiday season. So when these things come to the surface, how do we make it a practice to like really bring a little bit of mindfulness into the way that we are meeting our partner so that we can respond instead of reacting from the space of our pain points? Now, there's a couple steps that I tend to suggest to the couples that I work with in terms of what we can do to sort of be in that offensive space of communicating in the way that we want to when these things arise, right? So there's a couple steps to that. And the first step is really giving ourselves permission to pause. So when we feel a little bit overwhelmed or frustrated with our partner, or we can feel ourselves about to get into a conflict in a way that we would rather not, I love to say, take a pause. And that can be telling your partner, I need a minute. I'm going to go in the other room. Maybe I'm going to step outside for a minute, get a little bit of fresh air, whatever you need to do to really come back into your body and notice what's happening for you again on a nervous system level. Notice where I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, and just take a moment to like slow down the process of what's happening inside of me, right? Once I've taken that moment to pause and slow down a little bit, I'm going to get into that space of the personal inquiry. So, really checking in. What is the story I'm telling myself right now about what is happening between me and my partner? And this is that thing of like a lot of times when we're feeling overwhelmed or we're feeling really stressed, we tend to meet our partners and whatever the interaction is with the least generous interpretation of what their intentions were, right? So it's that thing of if I were to interpret what just went on between me and my partner with a little bit more of a generous interpretation of what their intentions were, what they meant, why maybe they're not out to get me in the moment that, I'm maybe telling myself that they were, how would I meet this moment a little bit differently, right? And the next thing is that it's about bringing a little bit of a practice of intentionality into how I'm going to re-enter that space with my partner. And so we can call this segment intending. And that's that thing of like, in any moment, we get to pause and begin again. I love to say with every breath, we have an opportunity to begin again. So bringing a little bit of a conscious decision into the space of how do I want to re-enter that space with my partner? What am I going to bring in terms of my energy? What is always the only thing that I'm in control of into that interaction between us when I go back into the space we were just in, right? So we can do this as many times as we need to, but really taking that moment to take a breath, check in with the inquiry, but then bringing a little bit of intentionality into the space as we go back in. And the last step of how we can play with meeting our partners when we're in that space of frustration or overwhelm is taking an opportunity when things are calm. And I love to say it's not always the best time to talk about things when we feel activated. A lot of times, if we say to our partner, yes, we were in the space of frustration, but I'd love to circle back and talk about this maybe tomorrow morning, in a time when I've had a little bit of time to sort of breathe into what just came up for me, reflect on what my thoughts were. That's not always possible, but when it is, I find a lot of times it can be a little bit more helpful to talk about things when we've both had an opportunity to catch our breath, right? So when we've had that opportunity, really bringing our partner in on the story I was telling myself about what just went or what went on between us last night was X, right? And that can even be on the drive home, but giving ourselves a little bit of time to slow down our process. I think a lot of times our conflicts can be diffused a little bit if we just take a moment to like be with ourselves and come back into our body in a mindful way throughout the holiday season. So, wishing you a very happy holiday, and I hope you give yourself a little bit of time to slow down and take care of yourself well.